again and again and again. Your boys are not going to be sent into any foreign war.
I should like every American to realize that this country is making every possible effort to preserve the peace.
The rights of man, the civil and economic rights essential to the human dignity of all men, are indeed our goal and are indeed our first principle.
Tonight, I again proudly accept that nomination for President of the United States. But I have news for you. This time there's a difference. This time we're going to win.
As for the peace that we would preserve, I wonder who among us would like to approach the wife or mother whose husband or son has died in South Vietnam and ask them if they think this is a peace that should be maintained indefinitely.
So when I was leaving and George W. Bush was coming in, the only thing I asked him to do was to preserve AmeriCorps, and he did.
America stands on the brink of change. The year 2024 promises to be a pivotal moment in the history of presidential elections. The political arena is heating up, and on the horizon, a familiar figure emerges once again: Donald Trump, a name that sparks as much controversy as it does support. His return to the political stage raises one burning question: will he be able to again become the leader of the nation? And what new cards will he reveal in this grueling race? Perhaps this story is about a man who is ready to change the course of events, or maybe divide the country once again. If Trump becomes president again, will he succeed in extinguishing the military conflicts in the Middle East and Europe? Will he succeed in changing the political situation on the world stage, and will he return a happy life to Americans again? Let's try to understand a little bit about these moments and predict what the future is preparing for us. Donald John Trump is an American businessman and politician who served as the 45th President of the United States from 2017 to 2021. He was born on June 14, 1946, in New York City to real estate magnate Fred Trump. Donald Trump rose to prominence as a major developer, taking over his father's company and turning it into one of New York's most well-known construction firms. In the 1980s, he became famous as the face behind luxury skyscrapers, hotels, and casinos, such as Trump Tower in Manhattan. In addition to his business ventures, Trump gained further recognition on television as the host of the popular show The Apprentice,
Mr. Donald! Oh my God!
which solidified his image as a successful entrepreneur. In 2016, Trump announced his candidacy for the presidency, and despite early skepticism, he won, becoming one of the most controversial and influential presidents in modern American history.
Hey, I'm president! Can you believe it?
His presidency was marked by sharp political and social shifts, such as his America First and Foremost policy, the renegotiation of trade agreements, and a strict approach to immigration. Among Trump's key achievements were tax cuts.
We enacted the biggest tax cuts and reforms in American history.
The appointment of 3 Supreme Court justices, and a re-evaluation of relationships with several international allies and adversaries. However, his tenure was also marred by numerous controversies, including his impeachment in 2019 and the accusation of incitement following the January 2021 Capitol riots. Despite his loss in the 2020 election, Trump remains a powerful figure in the Republican Party and U.S. politics. In 2024, he announced his intention to run for president once again. For many, the United States presidential election is a pivotal moment that will impact not only the United States, but the entire world. Trump's multifaceted political views have not changed since he left office. However, this cannot be said about the global landscape, which has significantly changed in recent years and has become more aggressive in many aspects. New global conflicts have arisen. The rivalry between major powers has intensified, and the world we know is rapidly and confidently falling apart. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have completely different perspectives on how to address political, economic, and climate issues. Many countries around the world are eagerly anticipating the upcoming United States presidential election. Israel, Taiwan, and Ukraine could lose everything in an instant. It is well known that when there is a radical shift in leadership in the White House, United States foreign policy changes at its core. Each of the candidates, through their statements and positions, simultaneously brings both life and death to certain inhabitants of the planet. I hope that many people realize that there were much better times in the past. But today, especially in recent years, under the influence of the global backstage, the number of wars on our continents is inevitably increasing. Localized military conflicts around the world are emerging both with and without the involvement of the United States. It is interesting that while some countries are sinking deeper into military conflicts, political negotiations for peace are somehow not considered important on the eve of the United States presidential election. If Donald Trump wins the presidential race, he will not take office until January 2025. On the one hand, this is quite a significant period, but for global business and political goals, it is not enough to establish strong contractual relationships. Donald Trump is presented as a rather significant figure on the political stage, who holds opposing views on current world events. This, in turn, prompts some of the current partners of the United States to freeze future decisions on various issues. After all, we are being shown and convinced that Trump is decisively ready to break the entire system that was created before him. For example, European politicians expect significant changes in the United States, primarily driven by concerns about security, trade, and political alignment. Many European leaders, particularly from countries like Belgium and Germany, have voiced concerns about the future of transatlantic security under a potential second Trump presidency. Trump's America First approach, which previously questioned United States financial commitments to NATO and threatened to pull back military support for Europe, could return. Countries like Germany are preparing for a scenario where Europe may need to stand alone or become more self-reliant in military matters, especially with ongoing conflicts like the war in Ukraine. Some, like the Belgian Prime Minister, have already called for Europe to strengthen its defense and strategic autonomy in anticipation of less reliable United States support. Climate action is another critical area where Trump's policies would likely diverge from Europe's. His previous withdrawal from the Paris Agreement and general skepticism toward climate change policy stand in stark contrast to Europe's push for green energy transitions. Should Trump be re-elected, European leaders worry about a rollback on cooperative climate policies, which could create tensions in global climate initiatives. Trump has also repeatedly mentioned that the United States spends too much of its resources on supporting the military machine in Europe, and that something needs to be done about it. According to some statistics, European countries spend less than 2% of their GDP on military needs. For those who wish to wage wars, this is undoubtedly insufficient. Trump has also stated that after his victory in the elections, he will significantly reduce America's role in security and military power in Europe, So-called nuclear umbrellas will remain only for the armed forces and bases located in Germany, the United Kingdom, and Turkey. In this situation, Ukraine may fall out of the zone of interest for the United States, which will lead to a freeze in the expansion of the North Atlantic Alliance to the east. Perhaps for this reason, or maybe for another entirely different one, Poland has decided to make substantial investments in purchasing military equipment. Turkey has decided to build a factory in Texas for the production of artillery shells. Germany has decided to create a military fund of 100 billion euros to modernize its armed forces. And here a logical question arises. Why spend such funds on things that only bring death? Why not use this money more rationally? I bet that the majority of taxpayers do not approve of such actions, as there are far more significant life problems than investing in a future killing machine. During Trump's first term in office, the situation of the United States in the Middle East was presented to the public as unstable. In May 2018, Trump withdrew from the agreement between the United States and Iran concerning the development of Iran's nuclear program.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
This agreement was approved by the previous President Obama in 2015. The withdrawal from this deal led to an escalation of relations between the United States and Iran. In September 2018, Trump closed the office of the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, in Washington. This was followed by a cessation of investments from the United States and contributed to the formation of negative relations with Palestine. In September 2019, trust from Saudi Arabia towards the United States was undermined. The reason was the attack on Saudi Arabia's oil infrastructure by Iranian drones, where Trump decided not to intervene in these events. In October 2019, Trump announced the withdrawal of American troops from Syria, which led to further deterioration of living conditions in those territories.
So I view the situation on the Turkish border with Syria to be, for the United States, strategically brilliant. Our soldiers are out of there. Our soldiers are totally safe.
In January 2020, an Iranian general, Qasem Soleimani, was killed in a strike using an American drone. This action led to a rapid escalation of tensions between the United States and Iran. Both political parties in the United States actually get along with Israel, and I am confident that these relationships will continue to strengthen. Military conflicts involving the opposing forces created in Iran will probably continue as long as it benefits the global system. On the European continent, the situation in Ukraine is extremely unpleasant. After all, the Biden administration and several major global corporations have made significant financial investments in the current events. Nevertheless, the Ukrainian military machine is experiencing a shortage of power, and here, Trump supports the idea of reconsidering further investments in the military operations in Ukraine, favoring a reduction in investments and resources, repeatedly mentioning that he could end the war within 24 hours. It is quite likely that, according to the text Trump has, a military conflict between Taiwan and China may arise. But this does not necessarily mean that if Kamala Harris becomes the President of the United States of America, there will be no military conflict. According to some sources, a military escalation between Taiwan and China is planned for 2027. Let's not forget that this was mentioned a couple of years ago by high-ranking officials in the United States of America. Looking at the overall picture of current events, one could probably say that Biden's policy does not differ much from Trump's. With all due respect to all viewers and those who believe that there are truly two opposing sides, I see the following. The difference between Trump and Biden lies only in the fact that, in the grand scheme of the planned course of world history, these two temporarily powerful individuals have been given a pre-written script for the development of global events. But this script is ultimately drawn from a general global plan for the future of every inhabitant of all existing lands. Look closer. Today's world, despite its partial perfection, has become more hostile and more saturated with military conflicts. Many of the leading so-called corporate states are making large investments in the defense industry, thereby feeding and breeding with their own hands a huge killing war machine. The United Nations organization has already lost its trend as an organization capable of quickly preventing military conflicts around the world. Someone is fiercely worsening trade relations. We are being intimidated by climate change, and amid all of this, human rights are being lost. Whether you want to believe it or not, these events will unfold regardless of which candidate is chosen, whether it is Trump or Kamala Harris. What is the way out of this situation? I don't know. Because you and I do not have the enormous financial resources that could be used to radically change one direction or another in the development of world history. And logically, the only thought that comes to mind is everyone needs to refuse to participate in any events that ruin all of humanity.
Stick around when we hold it down, look at what we found. This a marathon, not a sprint, let's go 100 miles. On the ground, with me to the clouds, never coming down. That's the crown on me, wear it proud, show them what we bout. Stick around when we hold it down, look at what we found. Said this a marathon, not a sprint, let's go 100 miles. On the ground, with me to the clouds, never coming down. That's the crown on me, wear it proud, what they was talking about.